Hello and welcome to Tarot Electric. I am Mary Schock. Before we get into my conversation with astrologer, artist, and amazing human being, Keenon Brice, I'm going to offer you some tarot guidance that you need to hear in this moment for your highest good. A card fell on the ground and it is the Sun. What a beautiful card, offering wisdom and light to shine on your path. This is a card that asks us to celebrate ourselves and to join together with family and friends to celebrate each other. This is the bliss card, the happiness card. It's perfect for this start of warm weather that we're having here in Baltimore, blooming spring, just the earth really worshiping and living and thriving under the sun. So this card really asks you to find the energies that give you life. Find the people, relationships, qualities within yourself, passions that you have that are life-giving to you, and then make those the center of your world. Orbit yourself around everything that gives you life, that fuels you, and that inspires you, and that's the Sun. This is a time to really experience true happiness. So I hope that you're all finding that opportunity and really taking it, because this is a beautiful time that we're all being offered. I really enjoyed having this conversation with Keenon Brice, and I feel like all of you listeners will also enjoy it and get a lot out of the wisdom that Keenon has to share. So you can follow Keenon on Facebook at KB Astrology. That is KB, hit the space bar, astrology. And you can follow me on Instagram at Tarot Electric and contact me on my website, maryschock.com. So with gratitude to the universe and to Keenan for making this happen, please enjoy this discussion, this conversation, this interview, this meeting of the minds.
Actually, with that Venus retrograde, I feel like Venus went direct on Chiron, and Chiron in mythology is the wounded healer. And what's so intense about that is that it's Chiron is supposed to be sort of your deepest wound or wounding. And I feel like what's really hard right now is sort of it kind of feels because there is forward, this idea of forward motion, and Venus is moving direct, and she's gonna move into Aries out of Pisces. It's kind of just this having to say goodbye to this really deep wound,
right?
That whatever it could be for you or for all of us, it could be the same wound for all of us, because we are all experiencing the same. I think there's this idea that we're not experiencing the same reality, but we are.
Like a cosmic earth wound too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Societal, but a planet Earth.
Yeah, and I feel like it definitely is that, and it's I mean, how magical too that we're recording under this crazy highway, and here comes the train in right now as we're talking about this. So it's just kind of barreling through all of our history and our pain and our grief, and just moving on and forward and through, right? I mean, I feel really, that's just really, I think magical. That imagery is really intense.
Chiron's arrow, just
yeah. And I feel and I think also with that sort of arrow motion, it's I almost wonder if we're supposed to be going, not really separating, I don't know what the sort of these
these gestures of like either like separating or like moving away from or going into, but it kind of is like this. I feel like we're kind of in this like wobble where it's like, are we supposed to be like moving away from like what has wounded us, or are we supposed to be going into it?
I definitely feel wobbly, so that makes sense to me.
And I'm honestly, I feel like it's weird though, because it's like every day since like Venus has like gone like direct, it's been like to go into that or to move away from it. Like, what is the like, and I mean, that's actually still Pisces. That's still really Pisces, sort of like the like two fish going in like opposite directions. Like, I feel like Pisces kind of like constantly exists like in a state of like going in two different directions.
And between the two worlds.
And I think that honestly, like between the two worlds, like between like
in and out.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like I don't think we can even like say really what it is that we're choosing to do, because just like am I going into sort of, because I know what's going on like for me, and everyone else knows what's going on for them,
right?
But I think that I feel like even like that sort of like speechlessness is very just like communicates like so much. Like, I feel like that's like what Chiron is sort of just that like really like that like tender like real tenderness that it's like also there are not very many like words you can like attach to it, because like Chiron is in Pisces, and that Pisces is just like the deep sea and like everything, like sort of just like everything all like.
And Chiron's a teacher, right?
And Chiron's a teacher. I'm trying to figure out like exactly what are we, and I mean that's the other question is like what are we learning from this,
right? This like slowing down, this retrograde,
this,
like, pause, deep breath kind of a vibe. So what can we learn in this? What can I learn in this? I mean, I have felt in the Venus retrograde was just very introverted and like journeying within myself in a way that I could see and was aware of and felt necessary, but also felt isolating. And
I wonder, as a Pisces, do you feel that way like in general?
Yes.
Because I feel like that's actually like that sounds really Pisces to me. Like that seems to be like the Piscean like struggle, is that sort of like that whole
inner world
and like isolation, like needing isolation, and
right,
like I felt the same way too. I almost felt like I was kind of like reduced to nothing. Like,
I know some people that felt great in the Venus retrograde, which is also really interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
Other Pisces that felt like different people in my life, but Pisces too, just telling me like, oh, Venus retrograde has been so good to me.
What do you think? I wonder if it's because like Pisces like not to like generalize, but it's like my sort of like understanding of Pisces is that like Pisces likes to exist in a state of like mutability.
Sure.
So I wonder if that's sort of just like within their consciousness that they just kind of got to a point where they felt raw, they felt open, they felt in touch with everything, and that's like that's the ideal state.
It felt like home. Yeah, I do.
But I can also see how that like if you're trying to do something different with your life for once, like how you don't, because for me honestly that point that I felt reduced to was like that's like life, like lifeless. Like that point was sort of just like being without. And it's also like we sort of like we did, because Venus moving into Aries, she's already been in Aries. She went out of Aries back into Pisces. Aries to me kind of represents like the new world. because it is like it is the new astrological year,
The baby.
the beginning, the baby.
Yeah.
And I feel like after having possessed such life and such light over the past couple of months, like when Venus was in Aries, I felt like it just like went straight back into like death and just like sort of like straight back into like the old world and like the ailments of like the old world, like
When it went back into Pisces.
And
then if you think about it from a tarot lens too, so like Venus is the Empress and Pisces is the moon and Aries is the Emperor. So you just have Venus, the Empress, moving in between this like lunar, watery, confusing, emotional place that's like full of like just the pull of cosmic currents, and then getting spit back out in between the like
it is actually like being spit. It's like how it feels like this like weird like, I don't want to like liken Pisces to like 2D reality, but like it kind of is this like in the sense that it was a retrograde, it kind of did just go back into like 2D reality, and then just like it's gonna spit right back into like 3D, like just like the self, like what you can do with yourself,
physical world,
like, and it's like you kind of can't I don't even feel like you can really prepare yourself for that shift. It's like, it just like, from what I remember, it just like happens. Like you just become like physical. You become like, you become out of like that state of just being like, out of that state of just, I guess, being like reduced. And also, the first degree actually for Aries, like in like the Sabian symbols, is like it's like, I think it's like a mermaid is like greeted by like seals, like she's like come out of like the water in the same way that like Ariel does like in like the Little Mermaid.
That's what I'm picturing.
And I rewatched the Little Mermaid like when Venus was like retrograde, and it was actually like it was really fun, and it was really like just
appropriate.
It was really appropriate. Like I really enjoyed like watching. It was so good. But it really did just feel like so, just like watching her like underwater, and just her relationship with like everything. I could just like feel like myself like so intensely like in her longing to like be like out of the water.
Sure.
Like, and I feel like that was sort of like, I felt like I had been, because like the old, just like I felt like for a long time like I wanted to kind of be out of the water, because I am such a like an emotional person. It's like I need in order to like become, or in order to move myself or like go anywhere, it's like I can't be overly concerned with like, I can't be overly concerned with like anyone else, in a sense. It's like I think that is Aries, sort of just like not being like concerned like about like, not concerning yourself with like other people. It like really is like about self. And I feel like we're afraid of like self, which is like, I definitely have like fears around sort of just like being that kind of person who is just like unto myself and like not concerned. But it's like,
sure, like selfish or self-obsessed.
but you learn, I think that's the other thing, is like you step into that space of self, and then you start learning more about like what relationships really are, and like what healthy relationships are, like, and sort of like, because I think that you can't,
can only come from a true understanding and a knowing of yourself, right? Like you can only come as a whole person, a whole individual, and then meet another and then have a relationship, right?
Where I think that and I think actually a lot of the relationships, I don't want to say a lot of the relationships that we're in, but I think that we really do have the ability to create people as we want to see them.
Yes.
And it's so easy to do that. And I think that I don't even think that you can really get around doing that. But it's you just learn that there are different ways of sort of no, people can't be everything that you want them to be, but that doesn't mean that they're not great.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you can't learn from them. It's okay to be challenged by people. It's okay to
have people surprise you.
And honestly, you want that because
it helps you grow.
I mean, I think we're badly in need of new ways of looking at things, and actually Mars is going to move into, I think actually today either is going to move into Gemini or has moved into Gemini, and I feel that's just sort of just so many different ways of looking. I think what people should do is sort of grab a hold of all the emerging perceptions or ways of looking at things, grabbing a hold of all these different viewpoints and integrating them, because I think Mars is also sort of about I want to say about resources, or that, but that also could be Pluto, just sort of Pluto going retrograde is sort of just working on resources, really tapping into what you need to survive for the next lump sum of time.
Can you tell me what Pluto is all about?
So Pluto is the planet of death, sex, rebirth, the taboo.
And it's big, so it rolls over.
It's actually Pluto is the smallest,
or
it's the smallest, but it has it can have devastating effects because of what it represents.
Yeah.
And I mean you're definitely aware of Pluto, Pluto Persephone,
oh, yeah.
that story or that myth, but yeah, Pluto.
And I mean big too, in our charts or whatever, it it's a generational planet.
Yeah, it's
right?
It's generational, and it's in Capricorn, which is sort of
Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn.
Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn.
Does it move around in the sign, or it doesn't because but it'll be retrograde for a while.
It'll be retrograde, I think, until September.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Which is a really long time, and that's kind of why I think something is happening where we're going really, really deep.
Deep.
And
do you feel the planets that are farther away, so they have these big periods of time that they stay in one sign, and the generational planets, do you feel they affect us more as a society, and the planets that are closer, so the Venus, the Mercury, the Mars,
I think
more personal? Or do you feel
I think that I think it depends on sort of say you have in your birth chart, you have a planet that's near that degree where Pluto or Uranus or any of the outer planets are Neptune, then you could have you could be really affected by that in a personal way. For people that don't have anything around where that planet is going to transit, they probably will see it on a global like scale.
But I feel like now we are so connected as a society, and things that are happening on a global, a national, like big scale, we are all feeling so much in our hearts. So I feel like we're all gonna feel this Pluto, right?
And I think that we're all feeling Venus.
Yeah.
Like
I think everyone was feeling Venus.
I think that we're all feeling like Pluto. I think what's like sort of like, and I think also like a lot of fear is coming up, and that just is totally Pluto, because like Pluto is like just like sort of like Pluto is that like dark, mysterious like figure like in the corner that like you just like don't know what to like expect from,
and like the Grim Reaper.
And sort of just like, it's funny because like, I mean, it's not funny, but like I went to like Fells Point with like some friends, and like we were having like a really good time, but then there was this like guy who like rode up like near us like on like a bike, and he had like a hood on, and then he kind of was like sort of like not following us around, but like we kept seeing him at like various points, and he's just like looking like really suspicious. And for some reason that just like that kind of just like reminded me of like, I think how people experience like Pluto as a planet. People who are Plutonian have that kind of effect on people. Like, and it's like it's not even to say that like Plutonian people like are necessarily like or inherently like bad, but it's just like sometimes like people just really have that sort of like, and I think Pluto like also like represents like complexity and like depth of like character. So like an experience that isn't necessarily good or bad, like a person that isn't necessarily good or bad, like, or just like depth,
but they're intense,
like depth of like,
that can make people very uneasy if you can tell right away that a person is very deep, they're very intense. It's kind of that like chaotic neutral maybe. But I think that's something that we could all probably take in our hearts and live with for this long period of Pluto retrograde, is just understanding what fear is. Like, I'm going to take that.
Also, Capricorn, the card for Capricorn is the devil.
Yeah, right?
Which is like, I kind of feel like it kind of does feel like meeting the devil, or just like, but also the devil, my experience of the devil is like sort of everything, in quotations, like everything that is bad and wrong with the world, and like encapsulated in an image.
Yeah. And I see the devil too. It's like everything that is bad with the world and ourselves, and it's all those things that the bad things are very tempting, right? And that's what the devil does. It like calls you, and it's this place that's very tempting. So even though we might know that these things are bad in the world, or even like cycles within ourselves, bad like qualities within ourselves that we don't want to encourage, but the devil just calls you to indulge them. It's so indulgent, hedonistic.
And also like I think that indulging that part of yourself doesn't even necessarily have to like, let me think. Pluto and Capricorn, indulging the devil. I still think it like goes along with sort of like Pluto. To me, Pluto just represents like fear, shadow, like your shadow, and your shadow. And what I've learned about the shadow is that the shadow is actually like a very like vulnerable like aspect of like the psyche. So it's like we have to just like change our language around. If we want like healing to happen, we have to change our relationship with the shadow, and how the shadow like is like, we have to change the language around healing. We have to actually create space for healing the shadow and integrating the shadow. So I kind of feel like Pluto retrograde to me just sounds like internal shadow work, like needing, like, what is your relationship right now with like death, sex, rebirth, transformation. And I was talking earlier about like sort of just like getting better at death, like getting better at like having a better relationship with death, and also just recognizing that like it's not morbid to talk about death. Actually talking about death and speaking about it actually is a sign of like life,
right?
As a sign of like being alive, is separating. It's like this weird thing of like just being like pulsating like with like life, like being on the brink of like life. I think is like a and you can indulge that. You can indulge that you've like been through a lot of trauma, but you're still alive. Like
right.
you can be, and actually like the degree that Mercury went retrograde on was like a widow, like soul cleansed, like kneeling into like an open grave, soul cleansed from grief.
Whoa.
Seeks the secret to life, or something around that. And I kind of feel like it's weird because it's like all of these like symbols and all of these images like are very like, me knowing them helps a lot with me. First of all, it's fun. It's like it like inspires me, but it like really helps me to like push myself forward and like deepen. And which also sounds like Pluto to me, just like deepening. Like, what is your relationship with deepening? Like going into yourself. It's very like, and like I said, it might not be as intense for everyone, this transit. And that could also be like a good thing if it isn't super I mean, not everyone is going to experience like the retrograde in the same way.
Sure.
But it's however you choose to see it, however you feel, however it comes in, welcoming it with sort of like this formula of like being in touch with,
just being aware of it, right? Like being aware and being observing of yourself and the world around you, whether you're going to feel this retrograde very intensely or whether it's going to be more something I think also you see like outside.
Venus to me lately has felt like the key to all of this, is because it's like I've realized like sort of we love to relate. We love to have things that we can relate to, people that we can relate to. We love relationship.
Yeah.
And Venus is all about relationship. And I feel like Venus is like coming out of darkness and is like seeing new things around her, like wants to experience like new things. Like the world is like opening up, or the world is revealing itself.
Right.
With Venus like moving out of Pisces back into Aries. I feel like the world is like, and I feel like that's something that you should like really grab a hold to. There's a lot of other darkness, and literally darkness, because like planets are like moving into the shadow of themselves. So there really is like a lot of like shadow stuff coming up right now. That's or like so moving through the shadows. But like Venus is like moving direct, while all these other planets are like going through like the shadows. So it's like, that means like new art, like new relationships, new experiences. Like I feel like it's really important to sort of like anchor yourself. That reminds me of like the Chariot, actually, just sort of just like grounding yourself like in that, and like allowing
in this physical earth too.
Yeah. And also like even like it's Taurus season. It's like it's really important to like see that like nature restores itself. It's important to like I think that we're all really afraid that the Earth is going to like go somewhere, the Earth is going to leave us. But it's like we're here, and it's also okay to be like earthly, because we live on Earth, and like there's just so much like there's so much. It feels like not a lot. It feels like not a lot is left, but there actually is a lot, and maybe that's what we're going to discover as we keep moving forward, that there is like so much. But we really like this, like we really are like going through this like really dark period right now where it just feels like there isn't anything.
What else is in retrograde
So
right now? So we just got out of the Venus retrograde.
Just got out of the Venus retrograde. Mercury,
happening?
Saturn,
Okay.
Pluto. Mercury, Saturn, Pluto. Oh, and also Jupiter.
Jupiter too.
Jupiter too. So things are actually like very different than they were, I want to say, maybe in the fall.
Sure.
Like Jupiter had moved into Libra. Like still very early. We're still very like early in this like new story, or this new, I don't even know what to call it, just like still very early. And I feel like there are like a lot of people who are like really like doom and gloom, which is like kind of doing us a disservice, but like at the same time I understand where that is coming from.
Do you feel like they're missing, because Jupiter is the planet of expansion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel like they're missing that sense of,
I think a lot of people are actually like we're deeply missing a sense of like expansion. Like, and so we're sort of missing expansion, we're missing like,
and maybe the big picture too.
missing the big picture. And I think more and more like Jupiter in Libra to me kind of sounds like, I think like one of my favorite astrologers, I think her way of sort of bringing in Jupiter was like, her phrase was like, blessed like are like the peacemakers. And I kind of feel like that's another thing that we're like missing right now, is sort of just like maybe people that are like going into the line of work to like spread peace. That kind of feels like it's missing. It's just like you doing your part. And also Libra is about sort of just like that balance of just like what you put into the world, like coming back to you, or just the natural state of like harmony and like balance. So it's like you really do have to do your part to contribute.
Right.
And I think more and more, the more and more that I think about it, it's like I have been doing everything that I can, and I want to be like doing like more.
People might be feeling burnt out, maybe.
And also people are feeling like burnt out because just it's so easy to burn out. I feel like I was thinking to myself, like thinking about just like a fire like burning. It's like how easy it is to like, I mean, a fire like endures, but like also like if you're a fiery person, you need to recognize your ability for burning out.
Sure.
Like that's really important to like remember that you can burn out, and also to remember that like burning out doesn't have to mean death. It doesn't have to mean like you're dying because you're burning out. Like I think we really have to like,
you can always like kindle.
And I actually think that's like what's cool about like people who are really fiery is like it seems that they burn out, but they like restore themselves. Or like if you know people who are like really passionate, like you could have a conversation with them about how they sort of like how they embody that, or like what are the pros and cons of being so passionate and being so fiery. It's like I feel like we could really like learn from other people,
right? And
like really like learn how to be better. And I feel like this conversation is like so like heady, and like very like we're talking about like so many different things, but I feel like it's just
I feel like it will resonate.
I hope it resonates with people, and I hope that they find sort of like whatever it is that they sort of
like listeners, you know, whatever you're getting out of this, I mean, that's going to be what's speaking to you in an important way. So I feel like that's just the key.
Do you feel like I've been thinking a lot about how, I mean, also I was, you know, obviously like 4 years ago, like I was younger, like maybe even like 7 years ago, I was a lot younger and hadn't really like come into a lot of what I know now, but like, it feels like energetically, like things just felt so much lighter.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
And it's not even like necessarily that like dark things were like still happening. There was still darkness, but things felt so much lighter. And I'm wondering if that's just because like the face of that darkness was different.
Yeah.
Like the face of it, which that's also like Pluto. Like
your
just
shadow, right?
Like your shadow, and also just like a person could appear so pure, like have such like good intention, but like not even that they're secretly evil, but just like their shadow, like they haven't integrated their shadow, so the shadow everyone has a shadow,
right?
Like, so it's like that kind of makes me think about like Obama and just like Obama's like shadow. Like,
I mean, I feel like we're in it, right? Like the Obama years were such like a bright time. And there was just so much like celebration and goodness, but there was still so much
like
pain and darkness and shadow stuff happening in America. Like we just maybe weren't looking at it. And then I feel like now, like all the injustices that were not given a voice 4 years ago, I mean, before we had like Black Lives Matter movement, so much, like all that injustice was still happening, but we just weren't looking at it. So now, even though it's so painful and it's hard to look at and we're all doing hard work, it's also like the important work. I mean, that's like a real life example of shadow work that's happening, right?
Definitely.
And it's so
and
hard.
I think that like Pluto and Capricorn is sort of like seeing the shadow work being done in our relationships with like authority, government, like the plutocracy.
Sure.
Like that's all very like Pluto and Capricorn. I think the thing that I want though is like I want there to be, this can be maybe this actually like could really be like Pluto and Capricorn retrograde work, shadow work that you do is sort of like taking this inner world of like transformation and putting it out into the outer world, like creating spaces for people to be able to, because I think more and more about like how like I write poetry, I write astrology, all of these things are centralized to like my laptop, which really like I'm like, wow, like I'm living like my whole life on the internet. Like is there a way that we could externalize so many things that we keep inside of ourselves and just like things to be like so much more like open and like expansive? Is there a way that we could just like create the world that we want, essentially? And I mean that like takes a long time, but
I think it would be a worthwhile thing to do and a good, I mean, I like that as a personal exercise for the next couple months, the summer, and then into September.
And that's the kind of responsibility that like no one wants to take, is like actually implementing like new structures into the world.
Yeah.
That's like it's really hard, it's really difficult, like, but I feel like I see in my relationships I see me doing that with people, which feels really good, is like creating things with people, not only for like us to have, but for other people to have. It's like I feel really good about that. And it's like, it is like a dark, it's dark to create things. Like you need, like it's very dark. Like things are born out of like darkness.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's like I've become more and more and more and more aware of like the darkness in like everything. Like I think more and more I wake up to just like, it's something I talk about like every day with myself, like, and sometimes it becomes like really heavy, but it's like, and that sometimes I need to lighten up.
Right.
Like it's just like it's like how there's so many things that are like happening, and I wonder if like other people, I always get like kind of uncomfortable with myself because it's like I feel like I'm too aware of like all of the processes that are like happening.
Do you feel like knowing astrology like gives you that awareness? So I mean, you said it helps you, and I mean, I definitely know that for me, paying attention to astrology and the bigger shifts like helps me a lot. But do you also feel like it can be overwhelming? Or...
I do. I feel like it can be. I feel like it can be. I do.
But it's important, and I think that you're playing like an important role in society by talking about it and by sharing that knowledge.
Yeah.
So even when it's hard,
I do wonder though,
grateful.
like, and I feel like that's the other thing is like sort of like the shadow around like, sort of like people who are like caretakers, like people who give people things, like people who like, because it's not easy to like have to like, it's not easy. Like, I think like the way I'm talking about all of these things, like they're all very like interesting. Like they're all very like heady and like intellectual, but actually like it's not easy to possess this language.
Right.
And it's like, I want to give to people. I want to like be there for people, but it's like still, it's not easy to hold this space.
I resonate with that. I mean,
as a tarot reader,
yeah.
you would know that, like,
yeah, similar vibe. But I feel like that's why what you said about coming out from within and moving to an external place where we can join and share as community, and that's why it's so important, because it'll unite us all and share the information, which is really important, but it'll also lift some burden off of you, right? To get everyone else involved.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and I think it's like the work that we all
need.
Everyone goes to work.
Yeah.
Everyone has a job. Like that's just like the way it is.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to go to this point necessarily, because I've yet to really dig deeper into it, but I saw like a I think I saw like I went to like this thrift store and I saw like a hat with like I think it was like a hat with like the communism like symbol, and I was just like, and the more I think about it, I'm just like, isn't communism like everyone works?
Right.
And I'm just for the whole, and I'm like, I don't know if that's like me. I've known a lot of people. There have been a lot of people that are important to me who are like communists. Like, it's like more and more I'm sort of just like, wow, like, I mean, everything that I'm sort of like talking about, like, sounds like just like everyone works like to contribute to. It just seems like it's what we're doing in any way. Like it's like, maybe I don't know.
Minus the capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever wanted to live on a commune together, I would be 1,000% there. Definitely dream of commune living.
And I've also I feel like I've seen I mean, actually, like, me coming up in Baltimore, I witnessed that kind of living.
Yeah.
That's like
People do it.
going, I mean, you know, like Tribal House, like in Waverly, like even like
So
the copy,
many.
even like
Yes.
the copycat, like
Yeah.
those are things that I feel like we witnessed and like were a part of.
Artist spaces.
Artist spaces, like,
They often function like that.
yeah.
But the thing is, like, we can't get these spaces to be fully self-reliant until society understands and values the work of the artists and the work of healers and people who
I saw
like
labor. I saw like a something that someone designed that said like art is labor.
Right,
And
exactly.
I'm, like, totally, like, I feel like I'm constantly in labor.
And the metaphysical work, it's labor too. It's like all connected. But I feel like we just have to keep doing what we're doing, honestly.
That also, yeah, keep doing what we're doing.
And not settling. Because if we
Yeah.
settle and get super normal jobs and stop creating art or stop living in an alternative way, then we're not kind of paving a path.
Yeah. I wonder, like,
Sounds like we could do some work in these retrogrades. I'm gonna like, work on my shadow self, see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I guess there just is this like sense of like loss, and I'm trying to figure out like how we can heal and just like how dreams can still feel like possible, and how like I think it's so important to have a dream. For people to have a dream, it's important to be like, it sounds so elusive and like Neptunian, but like to live your dream is like I love that too. I think that really is important. It's important to be living the life that, I mean, that's another thing. We're talking about like all of this like work, but it also is important to be living the life that you want to live. If it means like you can't take all the work,
right?
If it means that you can't be on the front line, then
because you have to practice self-care.
Yeah. And like it's
so you don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, like I think more and more, but honestly, like having a relationship with darkness though has like definitely like, it has been really enriching in everything, in every other aspect of like what I want to do. Like just knowing, like just having a relationship with my shadow. I've honestly like sat and like with like my tarot cards, like I've literally every night, like I'll sit, like I'll like put out a table and like I'll just like sit and just like let the cards like fall as I like shuffle them, and I just like have this conversation like with my shadow, with like my values. Like sometimes it gets intense, like because sometimes it's like I'm like stitching everything together and just like healing, but that's become a part of like my day, like my routine. So maybe I won't need that like forever, like, or in the future I won't need that sort of intense like talking to myself. But
I don't know, I think having a conversation with ourselves is really valuable.
Or you do it like how some people have like therapists. You set aside like a time. Yeah. Like I think we also have to be better at like just like sculpting and like shaping our lives, because I think that's when you really like get into like how fulfilling life can be, is like when you begin to like shape and like sculpt and like just there's so many processes that require a lot of work from you, but
Yeah.
it's like, and actually what I'm hoping is that like that's what these retrogrades are, is like the sculpting in the inner work, and then we just get to like live. Like when they go direct, we get to like all the structures are in place. We get to like reap the benefits of the work that we did.
That sounds great. That sounds good. So if we can just work hard in these retrogrades, we can like integrate maybe more of our shadow self, integrate our dreams into our life, like create our lives to be more in line with like our soul purpose and what we really want and need out of life. And then when everything kind of goes direct again, we'll be in this like aha kind of a place, right?
Yeah. And it's funny actually because what the aha, like that kind of sounds like the degree that Pluto went retrograde on, which was like, I don't know the full name of the degree, but it was I remember the first couple of words were a hidden choir.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Which like Pluto is judgment in tarot. So like I just think of the angel up top, this like unseen but felt.
And it's so important to just like, I know they're images and they're symbols, but it's like it's so important to just like, there should be like more like lectures like on these things.
It's enriching.
Like there should be
right?
like people who want to like provide this like these services or like take that role, but it's so we want to push that work onto like everyone else. Like we want to, like one of my favorite astrologers, she goes to like, she lives in Florida, like she goes to lectures, she goes to church, she goes to like, she has like tarot, she teaches tarot, she has like she holds workshops. To me, that is like so, I think my dream is like living in a place where I can like provide those services to people.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like you're getting there. Honestly.
And I feel like I'm getting there. It's like, and it's thing, I think the thing is like, it's weird to be doing that kind of work because I'm just 21.
Yeah, but do it.
It's very, like, it kind of feels like it's like the whole world is like telling me like, you're young, like you should be like not like caring about these things. But I don't know what brought me to this point, but
no, this is your calling.
Like, it just feels like, you know, this is a very serious point for me. And I hope, but I hope that like, you know, there will be like various points where like things soften and things like just like I hope that there is just like a plethora or like a variety of like experiences. But right now I definitely feel like I see people I want to be like, not even that I even have a choice necessarily in the work that I do. I'm doing it regardless of like whether I like the image, whether I like or don't like the image of me doing it, whether I feel like it like fits me. It's like I feel like I'm constantly like always giving to people what I feel like could benefit them. Like when I talk to people, when I like write poetry, when I write for my like astrology blog, like.
Will you, because we're gonna wrap up, will you tell everyone the name of your astrology blog and how they can find you?
So right now,
I really
like
get
a brief like history of like how that started was, I started like, I think it began on like live journal.
Perfect.
Live journal, like I'm like not like I didn't, like have live journal like way back in the day, like when everyone had it, but I got it like a couple of years ago and started writing astrology on it, and so I got comfortable with that space on live journal. Then I moved it to, I had like a side blog on like my Tumblr where I started posting. I posted like astrology for like half a year, and then I moved it to Facebook because I was looking for that space where like people could see the work, people could benefit from it. And now it's on Facebook, and I think Facebook is like a good space for it, but who knows how that will look in the future. It could move to other spaces, but my blog on Facebook is just KB space astrology.
Perfect. KB Astrology.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Thank you.
Everyone go follow it because I definitely get a lot out of it. I love when you post images and words, and I just really thank you for like the work that you're doing. We'll do this again because it was really fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. And like,
you have a lot to share.
I do, and I was saying before, I'm like so glad that we're friends because I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of smart people, but I don't know a lot of people that are like you or that are you.
Oh.
So like I'm really looking forward to like what we can do together like in the future.
Same.
And like what other things we could provide for people or like put out into the world.
Yeah, same here. Well, thank you for everything that you do, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.